can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning all. Nice to see you. Thank you for showing up. Man, life goes quick. And you never know when it's done. So whatever anger, frustration, resentment, regrets, disappointments, anyone in this room have any of those? Welcome to the Dharma Bum Temple on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. Try not to carry them, really. I just spoke with, and I'm sure they and the individual would not have minded me using this as kind of this moment's inspiration to talk on this, but I just spoke with a family member, 3 kids, of an individual who was a part of this community the last couple of years who just suddenly passed away. And they came here because they wanted to see the space that was such a big part of his life. And I don't want to share any more on who it was or anything like that. Like I said, I was just coming up to start this and just pass them briefly. So spent about 3 minutes with them, but life goes, it goes quick, and we don't get to pick and choose necessarily when it's done. So again, whatever reasons we all come here, which is different for everybody, we're all sitting here with a life filled with resentments, regrets, mistakes, things we wish we hadn't done. And we're also all sitting here with a life filled of incredible things, accomplishments, joys, happiness, loved ones, beautiful moments. We all have that in our lives. For some reason, most people choose to focus on all the negative things, but you can figure that out the rest of your life. I don't know how and why, but be sure to take time and find gratitude and appreciation for everything you have. Because again, if you had the ability to come here and be here and sit here on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, and we're sitting in San Diego right now, there are good things in your life, 100%. Now, whether we choose to focus on them or not, that's up to us. That's really our choice. But our mind's ability, and this is, again, for me, why we practice meditation, not to have some deep spiritual awakening, but to be able to have the ability to choose what and when and where we focus our attention and efforts. And so our minds every moment have an opportunity to focus on all the pain and sadness and misery and hatred and anger. And our minds every moment have the ability to focus on joy and happiness and gratitude and appreciation. And so for me, training the mind has been about learning to focus on everything positive in my life, in the community, in the city, in the state, in the world around us, because there's so much joy and beauty in this world. And like I said, we don't know when it's done. One moment we're cruising along, and next moment it's done. So think carefully. I always talk about, there's a lot of heavy stuff we've gone through in our lives, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma. There's some heavy things, and this is not to discount or pretend that stuff didn't exist. But there's also just a lot of silly, ridiculous things that we're pissed off at every day that are just absolutely, in the grand scheme of things, meaningless. Again, I'm not taking away the serious trauma that many of us have experienced. I'm talking about all the other little stuff that when time comes does not matter at all. The person who got in front of you on the freeway, the sandwich that wasn't made the right way, right? Your latte that wasn't made properly, all those little things, the comments, they don't matter. So, yeah, just find appreciation and gratitude for all you have and go from there. That's it. Because one day we won't go. One day it'll be done. And, for me, I think that was the most important thing, was making a decision like, do I want to spend the rest of my life angry and miserable and depressed every day? Or do I want to take a different path? And, remember those of us old enough to remember those choose your own adventure books, that's life, man. You get to choose your own adventure. So choose a kind one, choose a gentle one, choose a wise one. But if you don't like the adventure you're on right now in your mind, then, turn the page. So, all right. So with that, we'll start with the meditation practice. For those who are maybe joining for the first time or meditating for the first time, to those virtual, welcome. Glad you're here. Thank you for showing up. Feel free to say hello. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. For those who are sitting for the first time or maybe sitting with me for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit and breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within the chaos, not escaping from it. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, just trying to sit up straight if comfortable, relaxing the shoulders if comfortable. Hands can be on the knees or lap if comfortable. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, just means you need to move. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever's comfortable. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, feel them fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from your practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It has nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This is not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It is not an escape as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment, as we know all too well, is often filled with conflict, chaos, difficulty, challenges. So training the mind to be present is learning to be with life as it arises and not run from it, which is what many of us have spent much of our lives doing. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't necessarily fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can then actually make changes in your life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in each moment. The Buddha called this karma. Karma is not what goes around. Karma is not what goes around comes around. Karma is not getting what you deserve, or they're going to get what's coming to them. That is not karma. Karma literally translates to action. It is what we bring into our lives. 3 ways: body, speech, mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do. This is our karma. What we bring into the world creates our reality and the reality for those around us. So this practice is learning to become mindful and aware of everything we think, everything we say, and everything we do, and how that impacts our lives and the lives of those around us. That's why meditation and Buddhist practice is so fun, because you just get to hold up a mirror and reflect back on your own self. All the pleasant, wonderful things we think and say and do all day long, we get to highlight them and look at all of them. It's a challenge. But once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it requires working on surrendering the one thing that many people have a really difficult time doing, which is control. Trying to control everything around us. That can get exhausting. Once you stop that and you work on your mind, your thoughts, your words, your actions, that's it. We do that every moment, and then we die. That's what happens. So enjoy this life. Appreciate this life, because it goes. So with that, I'll pause. For me, always really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And again, to those joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free to say hello. If you have any questions in the chat box there, you can put them and I'll do my best to respond. And we'll use the rest of our brief time for questions around meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm real new in my studies, I guess.
Yeah.
And the five precepts seem fairly self-explanatory, except for the third. It seems like it may be open to interpretation, personal interpretation, cultural interpretation. I was wondering, what's your view on that and your relation to the Buddhist practice?
Yeah, so the question, to paraphrase for those who didn't hear it, is you're relatively new to this to study and this practice, and your question is around the precepts. I'll talk about those in a minute. And your question is, they seem, especially the third one, as you say, I'm using your words, are open to interpretation. What's my take on that? I can't wait to hear which one is the third one in your mind.
Sexual misconduct.
There you go. So let me touch on the precepts. It's like, man. Let me back up even before I get to that. So let me introduce just the concept of precepts initially, again, for those who are new or newer to Buddhism. Precepts, right? It's important to understand that a lot of people come to Buddhism thinking like, well, I'm just going to meditate and everything's going to be fine, right? There's a great teacher years ago, and she used to say, an angry person who meditates is just an angry meditator, right? So meditation isn't the be-all, end-all fix that, all our therapists who sent you here, as I always joke, half of you are in therapy, half of you are therapists, and half of the therapists are in therapy, right? So therapists are saying, go meditate. But if you meditate and you got a lot of other shit going on, you got a lot of other stuff going on to look at. So we can't just meditate. And so at the time of the Buddha, there were 227 to 311 precepts that he put in place for the community to follow. Now, it's important to understand that these precepts are not there as rules to restrict us or to restrict the disciples, the monks and nuns at the time. They were there to keep things safe, right? Do you drive?
Yes.
Okay. When you come to a red light, do you stop?
Yes.
Tell me your name again.
Andy.
Andy, you stop at a red light. Do you have to stop? Not always. Up to your own interpretation, huh? Oh, this is going to be fun with you. So, Andy, not always. So, what are the times that you don't have to stop at a red light? Because that's news to me. I didn't realize there was like,
If you're in an abandoned town with no other cars on the road, what purpose is that?
Well, okay. So now you've put your purpose into it versus the law, which says you have. Okay. We usually wouldn't go that far. I just wanted to hear how you spun that, which helps me understand how you're going to spin the precepts, right? So this idea of red lights, right? We don't have to stop. You choose to stop. Why?
For your safety and others.
And other safety, right? What happens if you run the red light?
There could be consequences.
Could be consequences. What else could happen if you run the red light? To all the other honest people in here who run red lights. What else could happen? Nothing. You get there faster, no ticket, no harm, no foul, right? So lots of things could happen. The red lights are there to keep, in general, people safe, right? And I understand how you twist it and say, well, if you're in a deserted town and there's nobody there, there's no need for it. Understood. But the same could be said on Elkhorn Boulevard if there's nobody there at 3 a.m., except, the person crossing the street that you don't see. So they're there to keep us safe. Now, precepts are the same thing. It wasn't like the Buddha sat down. And again, this is 2,500 years ago, 500 years before Christ. He was just some dude. He didn't sit down with just a bunch of rules and say, you all must follow this stuff. The precepts, if you're interested, you can study what's called the Vinaya, right? You can Google it, Vinaya. It is the moral code of conduct and ethics put in place at the time of the Buddha. And they were there as things occurred, precepts got put into place. Again, he didn't sit down and make a bunch of rules and say, you all need to follow this. They were there as things occurred that caused division, conflict, problems, either in the community or for individuals on their cultivation of a spiritual path, right? So without getting too far into the technical terms of that, let's come back to the actual precepts. For me, I've always seen them as like traffic light. I mean, we even get like yellow lights to warn us, right? So precepts, the very first 5 that very often are taken by lay Buddhists, especially monks and nuns, things like that, are to refrain from no lying, to refrain from killing or harming, to refrain from sexual misconduct, which is the question, apparently the only one you have trouble with, to refrain from intoxicants or anything that alters the state of mind, right? Lying, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants. I give this talk twice a year to our Buddhist college group at San Diego State, and it's my favorite thing because those 5 precepts pretty much sum up college existence for San Diego State students. And one year, one of the students said, we did a precept ceremony at the end, and one of the students said, "Can I just take 3.5 of the precepts?" You know? So when you ask the interpretation of the half precept, it's beautiful because we wrestle with all of them, right? And let me also say this before I go into them. Super important when you learn about precepts, especially if you're hearing them for the first time, do not use them to judge yourself. Many people in this room have been judging themselves their whole life enough already. Many people end up at places like this because they hate themselves, they judge themselves, they don't think they're good enough, they don't think they're this enough, they don't think they're that enough. Then you learn, like, let's go into meditation and Buddhism, I'm going to sit and be peaceful. And then you realize there are these precepts. And if you're not careful, you're going to use the precepts as another way to judge yourself, right? We are unenlightened, ignorant folks. We are not these fully enlightened beings. We are trying to be kind and gentle to ourselves and our others. So as we walk through these, keep that in mind. First one, refrain from lying. As our speech necessary, honest, timely, divisive, right? The Buddha taught, do not gossip. I mean, imagine going like an hour. I always challenge people when we do the precepts. Go an hour today without talking about somebody. But still actually talking, right? Staying silent and locking yourself in your room doesn't count, right? An hour without talking about somebody, it's really difficult to not gossip, to not slander, to not use divisive speech, to be honest and truthful, right? This lying one is really difficult. Often people lie. Who do we lie to often the most? Ourselves, right? My favorite story is somebody years ago said they went to fill out an anonymous form at the doctor's office and they realized that they were lying on this anonymous form because they didn't want to put the truth down, right? We're so afraid of the truth often towards ourselves. So first one is to refrain from lying. Stealing, right? Also a fun one with college kids to discover all just the random stuff that they steal. But it's not just like robbing a liquor store or robbing a bank, right? Karmalekshi Soma, great Tibetan Buddhist nun for 50 years, used to teach her a lot. She was a professor at USD, religious studies, before she moved away to Hawaii a couple years ago. And she would say, you could mindfully rob a bank. You could mindfully murder somebody, right? Mindfulness without moral, ethical conduct and behavior is not Buddhist practice. And so she always focused on this practice, right? Stealing, taking what's not yours. Again, it's not like stealing a car, right? Which I have done, by the way, just so you know. It's not that shocking to those who think the Buddhist guy wouldn't steal a car. Yes, I've stolen a car. I didn't drive it very far, but I still stole it. And the idea is, what do we take that's not ours? What else do we take? What do we take from people? Time. What else? Peace of mind. What else? Their ideas, right? So we can take a lot. We take their attention, their time, their heart, their effort. You know, we can take a lot of things from people. So lying, stealing, harming, right? To refrain from harming. We harm ourselves, we harm others constantly. So to refrain from doing harm, super important, right? I'll get to the one you asked last. Intoxicants, right? This one very often just gets translated as drugs and alcohol. And then once marijuana became legal, all the college kids were like, cool, we can do that one now, you know? The idea behind the intoxicants is it wasn't just drugs and alcohol. It was anything that altered the state of mind, right? I mean, in the precepts, in the Vinaya, it actually says like to refrain from garlic. Apparently garlic is an aphrodisiac, so they didn't want them taking garlic, right? I mean, caffeine, chocolate, all these things alter our state of mind, right? So it's not just drugs, alcohol, it's things, what we consume, right? Social media. I mean, how many of you spend 5 hours a day scrolling through just ridiculous social media stuff? And then you wonder why you're angry and pissed off and miserable all day long, you know? So what we consume alters our thinking, right? And so to be mindful of what we consume, what we intoxicate ourselves with. Last one, sexual misconduct, right? So at the time of the Buddha, it was very clear. They were monks and then nuns, and they were celibate. And so there was no physical contact, interaction, touching at all, right? They chose the path of celibacy, right? Fast forward to today, you have a lot of Buddhist cultures and countries. Well, let me start with one example, Zen priests, right? In Japan, Buddhism was dying roughly 1,000 years ago. I'm not a scholar historian, but I know enough, right? About 1,000 years ago, it's dying. So they said, whoever they are, the emperors, the rulers said, well, let's allow the Zen priests to marry and have families. So then we can continue to, share the Buddhist teaching. So you go to Japan today, you could walk into a Buddhist temple and they'll say, this has been here for 800 years. And it's the same family passed down. And it really has. Lay Buddhists, right? As practitioners, you can have sex. You can have all the interaction you want. Are you in a relationship? Are you honest about it, right? Do you care about the person? Or are you just doing it to feed your ego, your pride, and your sense of self, right? What is the reason behind it, right? How much manipulation goes into it? All of that stuff. All of that is kind of tied up in sexual misconduct. Again, what we look at, what we consume, how we perceive, how we objectify, all these things are there, I grew up straight, white dude in a privileged area. My views are pretty disgusting most of my life, truly. And I had to look at that, how do we perceive people? What are they? Do they matter? Or are they just objects for our pleasure and enjoyment? So sexual misconduct, to your question, all of the precepts are open to interpretation to some extent. And they all really come back to what is the intention behind the action, not as simple kind of cut and dry definitions of things. Thich Nhat Hanh, I think for the most part, does a really wonderful way breaking down. He expands on, I think he lists like 14 precepts, maybe 16. His teachings on the precepts are really beautiful. So again, it's not that you can't have, sexual encounter, sexual interaction with people, but what's the intention behind it? Really look at that. So does that help? Yeah. Thanks for being brave enough to ask the question. It's not easy. What else? There's a question here regarding think good thoughts. I can choose my words and deeds, but do we choose our thoughts? Thoughts seem beyond our control. What is your take on think good thoughts? Yeah, Cinda, good question. I talk about this a lot the last couple of weeks. I think for me, again, looking at karma, what we think, what we say, and what we do, I can only speak for myself as a practitioner that, as I've shared often, my thoughts that have been cultivated over, even just, this lifetime for a long period of time. I used to think early on in practice that I was going to magically change my thoughts, that all my thoughts were just going to get perfectly, pristine. And after a couple of years, I realized I'm stuck with this mess for the rest of my life, right? I do not, as a practitioner, try to change my thoughts. What I do have ultimate control over is when the thoughts arise, what do I do with them? And so from the thoughts become words, often from their communication, and from the communication becomes actions. Those, for me as a practitioner, is where I focus. Next is to understand that if I cultivate kind thoughts and kind actions, those karmic seeds that I'm bringing into the world are going to plant. And in theory, ideally, if I do good deeds and speak good words and do good deeds, then the love and kindness and compassion towards myself and others will cultivate even deeper, and then maybe that will kind of grow better thoughts. But I'm just not a big fan of going into meditation or Buddhist practice thinking that if you do this for a handful of years, your thoughts are going to magically change. If you've been angry for 20 years, it's going to take more than 6 months to get rid of some of those thoughts. The initial thought is not the problem, right? Anyone angry at something right now? Right? How often do you focus on that? You could spend 6 months focused on it, or you could spend 6 minutes focused on it, right? So the thought in and of itself is not the problem. It's what we do with the thought. Often in Buddhist teachings, meditation, you hear people talk about clouds that are flying over your head, or airplanes get louder and louder and then they pass. So the real question is when the noise comes, the noise being your thoughts, can we just see them not attach to them, not cling to them, not internalize them. Because one thought of something that happened to you 30 years ago, next thing you know, for the next 3 years, you're going to focus on it every single minute. And it happened 30 years ago. Choose to look at it when you want to look at it. Do not pretend it didn't happen. I'm not discounting the stuff we've gone through, but we don't have to spend our entire lives focused on it. And so for me, it's not about the nature of my thoughts magically changing just because I do a bunch of meditation and Buddhist stuff. It's about recognizing that my thoughts do not have power over me anymore. That to me is the difference for me as a practice. What else? Yeah.
What you're saying now sounds a little familiar to me. I started meditating a couple of months ago. What's called San Diego meditation, incidentally. And it's an interesting practice wherein we talk about karma being the life lived and really identifying the pictures in your mind. These experiences that we've had, good, bad, or indifferent, are etched in our minds oftentimes. We have the benefit of sight in the form of a picture. And there's emotion tied to those pictures. And so this particular practice has you conjuring up those images and then casting them into the sun, asking the universe to make the false disappear. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, so let me just paraphrase that for those virtually or anyone who didn't hear it. So your question, you started meditating a few months ago at a specific place, and what I'm talking about brings to mind that kind of a practice that you've been, that was shared with you about the images that come up in our mind and the practices to throw it to the universe and let the sun do something with it. For me, no, not at all, because I'm not a fan of like throwing things to the universe. I don't even know. I mean, I'm just being honest. That's all I can be. I don't even know what that means. Like, who is the universe, right? Like, to throw it to the universe. I was doing something years ago, and what it is irrelevant to go into now. But I was pushing on something pretty hard, and they said, Jeff, maybe it's time to throw it to the universe, and let the universe handle it. And I said, I threw it to the universe, and the universe threw it back to me and said, work your ass off. Right. So I'm just not, as a person, someone who like throws things to the universe. I think we as individuals have spent most of our lives hoping or waiting for someone else or something else to like do things. I mean, on a very basic level, people like want relationships that are going to complete them. Tom Cruise and whatever ruined that for us years ago. So we're always looking for someone else or something else to bring us peace of mind or happiness. Then you look at, and I'm a terrible comparative religions guy because I paid attention to none of it. Maybe that's why I can do this stuff, because I'm really not attached to any views with religious stuff. But many in a Western culture have grown up thinking that there's someone out there, somewhere out there that's going to fix things, change things, save things, do things. And if you have those beliefs, that's beautiful. But for me as a practice, I'm not looking to throw things anywhere and let someone else deal with it or get rid of it. I'm looking to be honest at it and say, look, this happened to me years ago, or this is what I did yesterday, and I want to understand why and have the ability to look at it, but not have it destroy me. And I'm not going to rely on, and to me, that's one of the beautiful things and also one of the most challenging things about Buddhist practice is often people come into Buddhism from other religious views or other spiritual views, maybe come in with this kind of view that like Buddhism is going to fix them, save them, heal them. And the thing I say, many of you have heard me say 1,000 times, is like, if you're looking for someone else from the Buddhist lens to fix you or save you or heal you, you're going to be looking for a long time. The Buddha died 2,500 years ago. You're on your own. And for many, that is scary because you're like, oh my God, I got to do this stuff myself. Yeah. But for me, that's incredibly liberating because it means nobody else is responsible for my happiness and nobody else is responsible for my misery. Regardless of what is happening around me or in the world or in a past, experience, I am 100% responsible for all of that. So those are my thoughts on that. I also will say whatever practice works for you that's making you calm and gentle and happy and peaceful, and hopefully isn't charging you a bunch of money and is not telling you to do bad things, then rock it, man. Keep going. So I don't want to totally, dump on that practice, but
No, I appreciate that.
Just one perspective.
Yeah, I just sort of stumbled upon it, and it did have an indelible impact.
Yeah.
Immediately, and it was so I see benefit in it. But how do you know then? Because this was that's an hour-long session versus
Yeah.
20 minutes where you're just sort of being quiet,
Yeah,
as opposed to being more engaged and trying to eliminate certain things.
for sure.
How do you know that? I mean, obviously, I felt very peaceful at the end of the 20 minutes. Thank you very much. But outside of that, you talk about doing the work
Yeah.
yourself. What does that look like? How do you know that those benefits are truly manifest?
Yeah. So, yeah, man, you're probably going to hate me. I'm just telling you that right now. So here's the thing. The Buddha was very clear in his teachings. One of my favorite expressions, and what's your name? Sorry. Alex. One of my favorite expressions is don't seek to be like the Buddha. Seek what he saw. What he was after was to figure out how to, often in Buddhism, you say end suffering. But for me as a practitioner, dude, I'm not ending my suffering anytime in this life. As a practitioner, I'm telling myself, can I wake up today? Can I wake up tomorrow and suffer a little bit less tomorrow than I did today? Right? The word dukkha that gets translated to suffering sounds very heavy and traumatic, but discomfort, dis-ease, dissatisfaction, things that just aren't right. Can I have those experiences and reactions and emotions a little bit less tomorrow than today? And so to your question about how do you know, the Buddha was saying, do not believe this stuff just because I said it. Try it. So I always caution people, within 10 miles here, there's probably, no joke, 50 Buddhist temple or meditation places you can go to. Go to all of them. See where you feel comfortable. See what works for you. See what benefits for you. To your question of how do you know if it's going to manifest out in your life? Dude, I don't even know you. I have no idea what's going to happen in your life. You know who's going to know how it manifests in your life? Alex. Try doing good stuff for the next 6 months and see what that does to you. If thinking kinder thoughts and speaking kinder words and doing gentler things make your life hell, then by all means, there's your answer. But my guess is it's probably going to have a pretty positive impact on you. But do not, all of us who sit up here saying all this stuff at the place you're going to and everywhere, don't believe any of us. We don't know what we're just as unenlightened as anybody else. We're just sharing our unenlightened approach to meditation and Buddhist teachings. If I can do 30% of this stuff, dude, I'd be great. This stuff is not easy. So do not think that the person that, especially for those who are new, that the person leading you or guiding you down some path has any great knowledge or wisdom any greater than you do. Try the things, the basic Buddhist teachings, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, right? Try practicing loving kindness towards yourself and others and see what that does for you. It's kind of like just a trial and error, man. Yeah, for sure. A lot of wild stuff out there. And if that wild stuff works for you, whoever, then phenomenal. Again, if it helps you and makes you kinder and gentler, stay to it. If not, yeah.
If I say to you, I think it's easy,
Yeah.
something's wrong, right?
Well, with what?
You think,
Well, a lot of things wrong with me, but I don't think that's your question.
I don't think it's hard
Yeah.
because I've been listening to you for a long time
Mm-hmm.
and I've become nicer.
Mm.
I don't gossip.
Mm.
When I catch myself doing something that's not so nice, maybe I stop it and forgive myself and
Mhm.
forgive the other person. I'm just wondering, I don't think it's that hard,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm isolating myself from other people.
Oh, okay, it's interesting. Yeah.
I do. I encounter people at work and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but I don't feel it's hard.
Yeah. Man, I was so with you until you said, unless you're isolating yourself from people. It's really nice to be nice to people if you never encounter anyone. It's kind of like when I talk about, trying to be, having like a meal in silence with a friend, but do it when you're not pissed off at them, so let me talk about the first part you said. For those who didn't, you're saying in essence, I think most of you heard that virtually with the camera here too, but that you don't think it's that hard. I'll say this. I was going to say, you kind of, going back to these precepts about refraining from lying. I'm lying to all of you. This practice is not hard. It's really, really simple. But if I sit here and I tell you all this stuff is so easy, and then you walk out of here and like before you've even left the property, you're already talking about the person next to you that you were sitting next to and you didn't like the way they were breathing, or you didn't like their shoes, or you didn't like whatever. And I just told you it was easy. How are you going to feel? Like you've what? Failed. Right? So on one hand, this practice is super simple. And on the other hand, it's ridiculously hard. It takes the same amount of time and energy and thought to be really mean as it does to be really nice. But for many people, we're just so conditioned to not be the nice one, right? I said, it's really hard for me to be nice. Like truly, it does not come easy. I know you're all shocked. You're like, what? You're so sweet. I'm an asshole. It's really hard for me to be nice. If you can't believe that, that's your mess, not mine, right? This practice is really difficult to bring into your life every single moment. Now, I was all with you thinking like, maybe you've evolved and figured something out. And then you said, unless you're just isolating from people. So here's the thing. If you're staying away from people because you just want to be nice, that's not the practice. The practice is to be around, right? We're coming up on holiday time, right? You're coming up around the potential opportunity to be around those who know and love you the most and also drive you the crazy the most. And that is whom? Family, right? Not all of us, but some of us. The best time to practice this stuff. Can you spend all your time around your wonderful family and be nice to all of them all the time? Look at your face. I wish you could see your facial expression. You try.
I try to let things go.
Yes.
If it starts to bother me,
Yeah.
let it go. That's not my problem.
I believe you when this practice has changed your life. Like you said, you're nicer, you're kinder, you're gentler. And I think as a practitioner, it's become a huge part of your life, and that's beautiful. Now try to engage with those you don't like, those that challenge you, those that disappoint you, those that frustrate you, those that have different views than you, those that don't feel the same way about everything and everyone you do. If we constantly, and I'm talking to everybody here, but if we constantly just surround ourselves in our perfect little bubble with the people that we all agree with, and we follow and listen and share everything in our own little world, we've just created this kind of bubble that we're afraid to step out of. Debate, dialogue, listen, be challenged by the people that absolutely do not agree with anything that you agree with. Put yourself in those situations. That's forcing yourself to really practice. And then you'll be like, oh, maybe it's not so easy. So, yeah. What else? We'll do maybe one more before we close.
Can't you just say kind of like peace is its own path in a way? Like it's kind of separate from like when you engage with somebody like who's violent or like it's like when people post like a picture of like Luigi Mangione or something on social media, and they're like, this man is,
I don't need details, names. Just tell me what you're getting at.
But I'm just saying like if you can have like a separate kind of just world for yourself where you're just like, somebody made this choice to use violence. I made this choice to.
Yes, you are internally, but again, it's the same thing. As I often say, the world could be a mess, but are you a mess? So if we're just choosing to create this little peaceful bubble and not look and hear and see things that are challenging us, then we're sitting in a tremendous place of privilege. And many of us have a lot of them. I have all of them. So we have to be careful that we're not just staying oblivious to things that are I know this isn't your point, but we have to be careful that we're not just what I call Buddhist arrogance and sitting in this little place of privilege and pretending everything is okay. To me, the practice, as Thich Nhat Hanh really made popular, of engaged Buddhism is to engage in the world, to engage with things that we don't agree with, but without hatred and anger, with love and kindness and compassion for every person and everybody that is doing all the things we don't agree with. So we can still choose to be at peace in our own heart and our own mind and fully dialogue and engage and be with people that completely disagree with us and that we actually disagree with everything that they say. If you can be at peace during those situations, then I believe we're getting closer to what Buddhist teachings is really about. But we don't want to create this false little facade of, look at me, I'm so peaceful, you know, and then the moment somebody cuts you off on the freeway, you're throwing stuff at them, you know? So, yeah. All right, so I'm going to close on that note. Many merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. All right, before y'all head out, our Dharma Bum host Juan has some announcements for us. Thanks, Juan.
Hello everyone, I'm today's host Juan. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. And those who leave are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food distribution program is every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow and then bring it back whenever you are done. We are also looking for a host on Thursdays at 7 p.m. If you'd like more information, just come and see us. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you again.
Thanks, Juan.
See you. How you doing?